Rumor has it you're looking for Evie to do a little doggery.
Mr. Render said, emerging from the shadows with a fluidity that was unnerving for such a large frame, a grin on his sharp-toothed visage. There was a glint in his eyes, as if he were a predator precisely calculating how he would eviscerate his prey. They didn't call him Render the Ender around the Wayward Warrens for nothing. Greetings and welcome to the Dream Syndicate. In today's video, we'll be sculpting a troll head. If you want to join me in making the imaginary reality, subscribe and hit the bell icon. We'll get started forming the basic shape from some trusty tinfoil. It's sort of a tube shape with a stumpy rounded triangle attached to it. Next, we'll add a flat oval shape to the bottom, and continue to bulk it out. The plan for this sculpture is to make it a bust, so just the head and shoulders of the character. You can find all the supplies I'm using in the description and pinned comment. With this design, I'm going for a classic storybook look, where the troll has that forward extending face, almost kind of wolf-like. I'm working on this at a time where I'm feeling at a loss for ideas, a bit of artist block you might say. Since one of my favorite parts of my art making process is sculpting the head, I decided to do a piece that's just about that, and here I found myself sculpting a troll. We'll just mark in the eyes, nose, and mouth. Then we'll add a piece for the bridge of the nose. I want his nose to really extend off of his face, so let's add another big wad of clay and blend it in with a color shaper. And we'll press in some furrows along the top of his mouth. Now let's give him some rolls of flesh along the back of his neck, because why not? Sometimes when I find myself at a loss for inspiration, I'll go back through old sketchbooks or bits of writing to plagiarize from my past self. At other times, I look to do something that's a bit of a change of pace, like this piece here. It kind of led me to the thought that I don't always need to make whole art dolls and fully realized illustrations with my work. That anything that helps me express the fantasy world that I've been exploring and makes it more real is worth making. If you use techniques you learned from any of my videos, I'd be happy to take a look. You can tag me wherever you're posting to. You can find my links below. We'll bring some of those furrows into his lower jaw, and give him some brow wrinkles. Then take these sort of oblong teardrop pieces of clay and blend them in for the cheeks. Let's get weirder with it and add these extra bits of flesh to his brows. Now we'll use a couple of beads for his eyes. From there, we'll take little long pieces for the lower and upper eyelids and use our tools to just sort of curve them around the form of the eye. Here we'll go in and put some wrinkles of the upper eyelid. It's kind of interesting how the troll is the online era's metaphor for negativity, with trolling, calling someone a troll, and then there's our own inner trolls. Either those negative thoughts we have, maybe we compare ourselves to others and our own jealousy when you see someone accomplishing something you would want, or self-criticisms and doubts. Next, we'll add this more pronounced brow over his eyes. Having some amount of criticism is not necessarily a bad thing. For anyone that is or aspires to be some type of professional artist, you need that troll, that critic inside of your head to help you evaluate your work in comparison to others that are getting the kinds of opportunities that you want. Being an artist is in part accepting some level of dissatisfaction or eventual dissatisfaction in your art. And it's actually a good thing. It means your tastes are maturing, and without that, you wouldn't get the sense that what you're doing needs to improve or how you might go about doing it. You just need to train your trolls so they're helpful and less of a butthole to you. We'll go around smoothing things out, carving little bits of texture where it feels right, and following the contours of the face. We'll sculpt in some forehead wrinkles and extend and taper his nose just a bit. Then we'll press on his ears and get them blended on. I'll add these little strips of clay to reinforce the ears. We'll start to press in to create that bowl shape and those swooping internal forms of the ear. As I was working on this troll sculpt, I heard his voice as a certain actor, Lenny McLean, aka the Governor, who I learned of from Guy Ritchie's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Otherwise, I will take a finger of each of you and your friends' hands for every day that passes without payment. And then when you run out of digits, your dad's bar, and who knows what then. All right, my son.
I imagine the character as a sort of underworld enforcer, and Lenny McLean was not only cast in such roles, but was something of that in real life, in addition to being a champion in illegal bare-knuckle boxing. There's actually a documentary on him on Amazon Prime called The Governor that I recently watched. We'll just add the little balls of clay to the sides of the nose to lay in the nostrils, and blend them in with a range of tools. This golf club thing, a color shaper, and a small ball stylus. Now I'll press in the nostril holes and refine under the nose. We'll just go around doing some last minute texturing along the neck and face. His teeth are tiny pointy pieces of pre-baked Sculpting that I poked holes in his mouth and then closed the clay around them. After I'd baked the teeth into his mouth, I thought it'd be kinda cool to do a resin cast of Mr. Render. But the issue with that was there are these gaps between his teeth and the rest of his mouth, which would be a problem when I went to make a silicone mold of him. The teeth could easily get stuck in the silicone that way. So here I filled in the gaps with some epoxy sculpt, and now we're filing and smoothing it. As we get dust from refining the mouth, we'll use a damp napkin to wipe it away. There's a weird divot I don't like, so we'll fill it with a bit of epoxy sculpt and sculpt it to fit with the rest of the mouth. Earlier I dropped the sculpt. I thought I got away without damaging it, but after handling it a bit, a sliver of the ear chipped off. I made an epoxy sculpt repair there, and we'll take a file to it to blend it in with the rest of the ear. One upside to the breakage was that it looks better with this slimmer ear, and we'll take a file to the other ear to balance it out. I tend to not make any part of my polymer clay sculptures too thin, as it makes them very brittle. We'll give the troll bust some clothes, and for that I want to show you this book I find helpful. Historic Costumes and Pictures from Dover Press. I enjoy period costumes, and this book is one of my go-tos when I'm looking for reference. The plates throughout this book were originally published in the mid-1800s. Now let's get up to some tiny tailoring, taking a measure of his neck. Since I haven't molded Mr. Render yet, this clothing is temporary, otherwise I would have painted the sculpt first. Mr. Render isn't exactly a troll. In this fantasy world I've been building, I kind of see most humanoid creatures as individuals with their own unique characteristics and sometimes abilities. I'm mostly breaking with the fantasy trope of races of creatures that all have X characteristics like elves or goblins or whatever. I think of all that stuff as a pretty modern conception that's sort of been ingrained in us through pop culture. Video games, role-playing games, that sort of stuff. But terms like fairy, elf, spirit, and goblin were used pretty interchangeably throughout mythology and folklore to just refer to something not of this world. We'll give him some ruffles, and for that I cut various lengths of the same white shirt fabric. We'll take our fabric scissors and trim an angle cut. What this is going to do is give us a neater edge when we fold little pieces of fabric over. Then we'll just fabric-tack a tiny seam along 3 of the sides. We'll sort of burnish the seam before we apply the fabric-tack, which biases the fabric the way we want it to fold. And here you can see how clean the seam looks along 3 of the sides. Next we'll do an accordion fold, folding the fabric back and forth. I also ran my iron across these tiny pieces to help reinforce the lines. I did a little gathering stitch at the top of each piece, also attaching each layer to the previous longer layer in the process. Since Mr. Render is a troll with style, we'll apply a suit jacket with this gray fabric, and pin everything into place. Having all these pins poking out does make sewing around them a little tricky. As we sew his clothes, we'll just use a few simple whip stitches on his shoulders and a running stitch along the jacket seam. I added these buttons, but if this were a finished piece, I probably wouldn't keep them. I don't like how they stick up off the jacket, and I'd find something that would just lay flatter. Now we'll fabric on his ruffle. If this were a finished piece, I'd probably use some heavy-duty glue like 𝐒𝐜𝐿 and glue the fabric in place to the bottom of the bust, and then anchor it on with a washer that would also get glued into place. The idea of resin casting him, but hand sewing on clothes, would let me paint different runs of this creature, and I could use different fabrics. For example, he could be in a simple cloak, maybe with a hood, and then I'd find some kind of sculpture base to attach him to. I ended up seeing if I could make an image with just a bust of a character, and this is what I came up with. I built a little set and photographed Mr. Render. His flesh tones were done with lighting, and I experimented with a bit of digital painting on top of the sculpture. I'm also starting to experiment with using a green screen, which was easier for video than I imagined it'd be, and also digitally painting skies with green screening. If you want to see my more villainous art dials being made, click the first playlist, or to watch another art dial build, click the second video. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to join me making the imaginary reality, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Until next time, make believe.